let's talk about hand-drawn effects for a second. So there's a thing that I tend to do, which is um, I have Clip Studio Paint EX, which effectively does mean that I have I can animate for an infinite amount of time, and it's the expensive version of Clip Studio. It is an infinite license or whatever the hell that means. So I can do this every single time. It does have some downsides. Like this is the frame rate. It plays like absolute trash, and I can't fix that. So instead of fixing it, it does make me go through things frame by frame, and I look for places to add different effects or stuff like that. But what I've been using it for more recently is hand-drawn corrections for things that masks are a little bit too tedious or overkill to do. So this little piece of clay right here, this is something that I've already imported the video and everything and whatnot. So a new animation cell here. I pick whatever brush I feel like is going to do a good job. Dark pencil's probably fine. And then I'll go in and I will literally just draw it out. And this is one kind of quote unquote effect that I do. It's not an effect, it is actually, it's just good enough that if you know what to look for and you're really looking for it and you're pausing it and you're going through frame by frame, you're going to see it. Like, it's just good enough to be bad, but it's just enough to not really worry about it. And if you make a good enough frame, it'll actually do a lot of heavy lifting for you until you get here, of course. But I digress. So instead of going and like this is still one singular frame, this is one of the more rare cases where this is effective. Um, and if it ever becomes visible or distracting, then you have to make a new frame and you got to kind of do it all over again and redraw your corrections that way. But all I'm doing is color picking from the scene and doing that. Until it's gone. And there we go. So we'll make a new frame there. And now you would never know unless you watch this that I'm hiding my crimes, my literal crimes. There's another place I need to do it up here that is easier, but that is neither here nor there. So this is one thing that I do after the fact that isn't DaVinci Resolve, where all of this nonsense and all of this nonsense and all of this nonsense, oh god, it's not even masks. Instead of dealing with it there, this is fine. So that's one example. Let's go on to another one. Are you doing a transition in real time? Wait, are you making another video? Don't make me do more. Ignore the guy that was yelling about editing. He doesn't have a choice, and that's me. This is real quick. You can see that we have eliminated the clay blobs, and now those blobs are invisible, and I do not care about them. Alright, so I did have one idea for the same area for this, just a little puff of dust or smoke. There's a couple different ways you can do it, but honestly, if you want it to be subtle, you would do something like transparent watercolor or smooth watercolor, probably transparent. Just pick straight up white. Find the place that you want it to happen. I want it to happen directly on this hit right here where the box touches. I'm going to make a new layer because I can, and who's going to stop me? Oh, that was a new frame. I need a new, what do they call them? A new timeline? No, I don't need a new timeline. I need a new animation folder. There we go. They've all got different names, different nomenclatures, but a new layer for my animations, which is not the right word because these are layers, but all these layers are also frames, so it is the right word, but God, whoever did this is fine. This works. I know how to work with it. I'm not worried. But I digress. Constantly into a state of panic and constant unending. The box hit. I just want some dust, so I'm going to use the tool and how the tool likes to work. When you do light pressure, it does smooth things out. And when you do heavy pressure, it creates these nice little borders that happen. And as far as hand-drawn effects goes, it's literally just a very hand-drawn effect. There's not a whole lot of magic in this one, but it's pretty versatile and it works in a lot of situations. It can work with wind if you do like windy things and then you start smoothing things around. But primarily, the best way that I have used and worked with effects like this is doing it frame by frame or straight ahead. Very, very specifically straight ahead. I turned on some onion skinning so I can see where my last thing was, and just treat it like you would any other thing, but sort of trust the process. Trust that it's going to work, and this is very specifically with Clip Studio. I know how this brush acts. I know how it works. I know how it likes to be used, and that's really kind of it. And for more complex things or things that break, just go straight ahead with whatever you decide to do. Going straight ahead, it means you're not going back and in-betweening. I mean, you can. There's nothing stopping you. There's nothing wrong with that process. I've found that it works better like this. Because you don't, if it's a more chaotic frame, you don't necessarily know what might be happening, or there might be something new in context of the next frame that you can't really plan for, and that's just something that is gonna happen. I don't know any other way to put that. But now it's sort of losing its form, and I'm letting it just sort of dissipate into effectively just like the cloud is now going away, and this effect is more or less done. I think I can do one more really subtle frame here, but I basically can't see what I'm doing anymore, so diminishing returns. If I can't see what I'm doing, no one's going to see what's happening when it's at this distance, and most people are watching on phones, so it's really like this distance. But I do like to cross my T's and dot my I's. But that little effect right there is now in. And I can't preview it in real time, but I know roughly what it feels like. I've been doing animation long enough that the feeling part of it I finally get. But with experiments and small things, 8 frames, pretty quick test. If you don't have Clip Studio, there is another thing that you could do, which is export your whole animation in single frames and then hand draw on top of that in something like Microsoft Paint if you were so inclined. I wouldn't suggest doing that. There might be some free options that work, but I have not investigated those as of yet. But that being said, there's another chance to do a dusty poof here on this frame that is more or less the exact same thing. But it can be a little bit more exciting, so I'm going to try to make it a little bit more exciting. We'll see if that works. Just when no one can see me and no one can hear me, I still do end up talking to or making sound effects for my own effects. And by that, I really specifically mean while I'm drawing. I also make the sound effects for all the other stuff that I do, but that is neither here nor there. That's just true. There's also a huge change in a single frame. It's going to be impossible not to notice this. Uh, and that is kind of the point, to be like very like intentional and obvious. But if you make one big frame, you do have to have a lot of other smaller frames to make it make sense. And by that I mean, like, this is there, but then dust is light, dust is going to settle, the clouds are going to sort of form, and I've already established that they dissipate. So as long as it stays consistent within this, I don't know, 50 seconds worth of animation total, then it should be fine. And if it looks bad, it's not a whole hell of a lot of effort to do it again. And the number of times that I've just done things again because they don't look good is pretty high. It's not a small number of times that I've just gone back, done something again because I didn't like the way it came out. And usually I end up with a result that's not just better, but one that is more in line with what I wanted in the first place. Redoing your work, it's fine. You should do it. Delete your art, do it again. That's thanks, Drawfee. If you also watch Drawfee and you somehow overlap with this audience, delete your art. It's time. Just do it. Anyway. But another thing that you can do, if you're working, like, Photoshop probably has a pretty similar pipeline. Procreate Dreams just came out, and I'm losing my mind not playing with it because I started in 2D animation in like my learning processes. So you're gonna see more Procreate Dreams content than you might have expected for a channel that's mostly for Gundam stop motion building. But really, it was a lie. This whole channel, it's been an animation channel this whole time. Can't stop it. Can't undo it. I'm not apologizing. But I'm also not going to stop building Gundams. In fact, if Procreate Dreams works out, then what's going to happen is I'm going to do a lot of my effects in Procreate Dreams. And most of this pipeline is going to stay the same no matter what. But if I can make more effects with all those, like, Procreate does have some sick ass brushes. This isn't sponsored by anything. No one pays me for this. No one. As of the current recording of this filming, which is fine. I didn't pay anybody for when I was learning animation, and maybe if YouTube gets their deal together, they'll figure something out. But till then, who cares? So yeah, you're watching me do this in real time. I'm going to snap cut to what this looks like when it's rendered in a little bit. And also, if you don't use this exact pipeline for DaVinci Resolve and other things, like, this is going to export as transparent frames. I don't know what else to tell you. Not transparent frames. Yeah, transparent frames. PNGs that don't have any background. So it's going to be thousands of these, or 1,360 images that will turn into an image sequence that will turn into ultimately the effects that go on top of the video that I've already edited. So keep that in mind. There's stuff that happens before this that's probably a pretty crucial element to my workflow. Everybody's workflow might be a little bit different, and by a little bit different, I mean as different as it could possibly be. There's no reason that somebody's using the exact same thing that I am. There's no reason for somebody to use the exact same thing as I am, but the concepts across the board will be the same. So conceptually, however you figure out a way to put hand-drawn things on top of things, that if it works for you, then that's the correct way to do it. As far as the actual animation process goes, then it's animation, however you get images in a sequence in a way that you like, then if it works, then it's correct. So the barrier for entry is, does it work for you, your budget, and your current technology level? That's it. And there are people who are so good at like, I was going to say Procreate. They're so good at After Effects and Photoshop that what I'm doing here is antiquated and old. Like it's not, I'm not going to say bad because I'm not mad at how I do things, but there are some cooler ways to get some cooler effects that I don't want to do because it's not how I like to work. And there are some people that are so good at it that it's fast and it's good, and everybody likes it. So let me snap cut to what this ends up looking like. Well, that was cool. I'm sure it was, and I absolutely remembered to put in exactly what I said I was going to do before this. So here is the other thing. You know what? We are going to talk about the blue tack that I use. This is all the time and always. It's what I use to. This is what I use in place of expensive rigs that I have to make or mill. It's this. It's this process every time. It's slow, it's boring, it's necessary, and whatever I can do to make it sort of slide in the background so you don't see that ugly blue, I have to do it. I have to. So just know that this is a part of my soul every time that I work in this medium. That is all. I'm not going to make you watch me do what is effectively going to be 30 minutes of hand drawing this out of like 10 frames, maybe. Maybe I can do this in 15 minutes. We'll see. It doesn't matter. Just know that when you see feet touching the ground, 10% chance that I've drawn on top of it. Okay, I found something that I can do something with. Maybe. We'll see. So this frame right here is when the two pieces impact and they come together and everybody's hooting, hollering, happy, especially me, because it means that I finally connected the first piece of this build. But also, to do that, I had to use this, which is my steel rod that has blue tack connected to it that is holding this up so that it works. And so I'm going to color pick and select and remove said rod while trying not to make it obvious. And it could be worse. It has been worse. It's been fully visible in several videos because honestly, it's exhausting and it may never be seen. But I've been trying to get better about everything that I'm doing, so I'm trying to be more diligent. So here's one frame where it shows up, and now that one's gone, and so now it shows up again. So now we erase it again, and by erase it I mean draw over it very carefully and then try to make sure that we sort of go over other colors, because in motion this becomes much more obvious and it's actually much more crippling to have visible in your stuff. I don't know how professionals do it. Let me be even more clear. I have no idea how professionals do it. I've never done professional stop motion. I just know that I feel for them whenever they have to. Everything is held on a rig. Absolutely every ounce of every thing that is not screwed into a table is held up in one way, shape, or form, and they do this, but on a scale that I, quite frankly, don't particularly want to imagine. Those people are extremely talented, and it is an art form just to pick and choose what you want to have be visible in your stop motion in general, period. If you're doing it for fun or professionally or anything in between, this is part of your process, and you have a different part of your process that you like to do more than somebody likes to do it. And just do whatever works for you. The other side of that coin is for those of you that are really good at After Effects, this is baby mode. I know this is baby mode. I know that you're probably not watching this if you're an After Effects expert. This is this is insane, even by my standards. Usually, you do all of this with masking, but I find that it's easier to do it like this. Uh, I feel like it's easier on my soul to do it like this, as opposed to try to force myself to learn something in After Effects or make it a mask it out and have like a black void to have to fill. That's a bit more frustrating to me. Here's a fun one I've been thinking about. The shadow has been completely changed for masking out the thing that was helping hold that up. So I might mess with that in a little bit. But what I was thinking was more along the lines of when this thing starts really going, to start drawing like an after image of it moving. So like this is the frame that it was before, but this is the frame that it is now, and just having like literally just big old anime lines. I don't know any other way to put it. Or like a shape that has sort of like this kind of thing going on, just to imply how fast it's moving. This is like super duper overkill, and yeah, okay, that's too much. That's too much. But we'll do it. We'll do it like this. Hold on, I need to rotate the canvas for this, just to make my brain make it easier on my hand. Um, but it can be as simple as this, and just like slightly arcing it, favoring where it was, and then as it's going, just keep the speed lines where the slowpoke body was, and also remember that it's going in a 3D motion. Okay, so now there we go. Now it's 24 frames a second. So as it's going around, just follow it where it was, and let that be that. This is certainly not ideal, but this is what's happening. And as that's going around here, the more intentional you are with speed lines, I find the more effective they are. Just in general and in life. Be intentional with your lines. So as that goes around, it will then... It is flying off this way. We'll have a really overly simplified impact that's going to start breaking up itself as the frames go on. And I really want to see how this one looks. I don't think it's going to be perfect, but I do have some great curiosities in like basically stream of consciousness animation, which is what this is. I'm just letting the frame before it dictate what the frame after it's going to do. That's my only goal. So we'll see how that looks as well. Okay, so I figured out my last effect, and by now there should have been at least some display of some things. So all I'm doing is making a marker so that I can see what's happening in onion skinning on the next frame here. But this is so Slowpoke is going for an attack, and I really just want to make it a freaking attack. Like have this thing that's been going slow this whole time just freaking go for it. I know this isn't what tail whip does in the game, but it's kind of a tail whip. It's kind of just a straight up actual factual tail whip. And one of the things that you do is you build the arc that the motion was already building uh, from the thing. So you don't really have to do a whole hell of a lot of work. You're really just implying the speed of a motion, the speed of a motion, not the speed of emotion, so that you can imply, I don't know, just speed, really. Like the arc that the tail is going on, if you overlap your last effect where it makes the most sense, and then you just sort of connect it to where it's going, like this is one of the more effective ways to imply like a motion trail of some kind. And if this was a laser, or if this was something else, or if it was like anything else, you kind of give it a. Of course, that didn't change the color. Uh, you you give it a border of some kind, and then you just soft color it in. Either fade it in, or you probably do something smarter and you use like you use a brush with a softer edge so you can have like a border to what's going on. But like it's really it's dead simple for what it is. So that being said, and before I mess up what I'm doing, uh, don't forget to make new frames. There we go. There's also an impact on our little core Gundam, so that's something else that can be added. As far as like tripping out our little guy. But I can also fake the arc of the tail to favor a better trail. That is also something that you can do. You're really just doing things to lead the eye towards the most important thing. That's that in like whatever sort of style that you want to give things. Like this is where you to insert style. You don't have to do a hard like a hard trail like this. It could all be blurry. It could be just dashed lines like an old like comic book. It could be anything. It could be absolutely. It could just be like this. It could be these, but I feel like almost lightsaber esque trail is funnier, so that's what I'm gonna do. And if you're working with something that has vectors, like vector art and moving and animating things is probably also pretty fun. But I don't even know why I brought it up. I don't work in that at all, more or less. But you could do it if you wanted to. So he spins around fully 2 times. And you can also always go back in and cut through your effects with an eraser, and you get some pretty cool, like you can get some pretty shapely, sharp edges and stuff like that if you want to. Do literally whatever you want, especially if it's your animation. there's no, I can't tell you how to animate. I can tell you how I animate, and you might be able to equate that to something that you like doing. I can't really tell you how to animate. I can tell you that I'm doing my best. Or at least a reasonable facsimile of my best. I could do better. You could also imply things are slowing down by making your shape smaller. And depending on how fast you make it small, yeah, that makes sense. Um, you can kind of get away with a lot more. You can get away with implying a greater change, even when you see it happening in the actual animation itself. Like if I just make this small and I take it down to a much more sort of like reasonable shape, you can start seeing the shadow. Then here, like almost nothing. And then let Slowpoke be slow again. Then it's kind of done. Although I'm going to give it a little bit more. There we go. So as he's turning, I'm going to do something silly and make him blink his little eyes. Just select his eye color. And give him one of those. Or, you know what? Why? I'm being silly. I could probably, like, literally close his eyelid. His biology does suggest that he has eyelids and that his pupil doesn't flatten. So let's try that. Let's see if that works. Just gonna color pick from all over him and see if I can get away with this. Although it would be much funnier to have him slow blink. I don't know. I don't think that this is going to be the final iteration, but you know what? Select all, copy, paste, right click, and then you add a frame. That's the process for how you copy one frame to the next without instancing a frame, which is something else that you can do in Clip Studio. It's not actually useful. I don't need instance frames in this case. If you don't know what instancing is, it's putting the same frame in multiple places, and if you make a change to one, it'll make changes to all of them. But again, not what I'm looking to do. Now I'm just animating Pokemon. This is silly. Let's go a little bit further. There we go. Let's pretend we know how to draw even slightly. Here, drag it up from there. I'll drag that down from there. There we go. Now he's asleep. And if I don't like that, I'll cut it out I'll cut it out in post. But that is my method for making effects. Is it useful? Oh. Is it there? Yes. Is it appreciated? I hope so. I enjoyed doing it at least. And that is pretty much it. So I'll probably play the animation in its entirety at the end of this, but thanks for watching. If that's useful, tips like this are useful. If you're just interested in seeing the process, I'll keep doing stuff like this. But if you have any specific questions or want to laser focus my attention, feel free to do so. Thanks. Bye.